by the end of this lesson, you will be able to make a number line, make a double number line with numbers that are fractions and ratios. Now, you have probably been making number lines since like kindergarten, first grade, but using integers only. So making a number line in itself should not be a new skill for you, but this is about to get very difficult. This is going to be a very bumpy ride. This video is kind of unique because I'm going to leave lots of time for you to work within the video. There's going to be some times where you might have to pause the video yourself, but I'm going to leave some room for you just to work alongside the video. So before we start, you need that worksheet I gave you, and if you don't have it, a piece of graph paper will do. This is the worksheet I need you to get, and if you don't have this, that's what I'm saying. Just draw a blank line on a piece of graph paper. We are going to be making two number lines. On the first number line, we only have one negative number and mostly whole numbers. On the second number line, we're going to have lots of fractions. I'm telling you that so you can be prepared how you write things. Write very lightly because you're going to probably be erasing a lot. Are you ready? Here we go. Draw the first number line, and I want you to put in the following numbers on that number line. 7, 6, 11, 14, 0, and -1. Go do that right now. Now I want you to add these numbers in. 5, 4, 1, 13. On the second number line, I want you to put the following numbers in. And then I'm going to have you add some in, so make sure they're not too squished. Let's go nice and slow. Since these are all fractions, first let's put a 0 on one end of the number line, and then a 1 on the other end of the number line. And write very lightly because we're probably going to have to erase. Where does 1/2 go? Right in the middle. Where does 1/3 go? Is 1/3 smaller than 1/2 or larger than 1/2? What about 1/4? Is 1/4 smaller than 1/3 or larger than 1/3? Okay, those are the easy ones. Now I'm going to ask you something more difficult. And I'm going to put them up here all at once. And you have to figure out where they all go. Why don't you just pause the video right here and work until you're comfortable and you're very confident that you put them in the right spot. Are you ready for me to give you more fractions now? Look at 1/3 again. You don't have to write it again, just look where it is. If 1/3 is right there, where is 2/3? And where is 3/3? Okay, knowing where the thirds are, where does 2/9 go? What about 3/9? When you get to 3/9, is that the same as another number up there? Because it absolutely is. You're going to have to put 3/9 in the exact same position as 1/3. And here's 6/9. 6/9 is also the same as another number that's up here. Do you see the one it lines up with? Okay, why don't you pause to make sure you have all those numbers in the correct number line order. Take a look at this double number line about yellow paint and red paint. What do you notice? Did you notice it starts with a 2 and a 3? And here is 10 and 15. Did you notice these are the equivalent ratios I did in the last video? Do you notice something that's missing from these number lines? What's missing on here? On your paper, I need you to write 5 equivalent ratios of red paint to yellow paint. Go ahead and write down 5 equivalent fractions right now. Now I wrote 3/2, and I wrote 6/4, and I wrote some other fractions that are equivalent, but that you might not have thought of yet. In fact, there is an infinite number of equivalent fractions that I could write. Infinite. What did you notice about the fractions that I wrote compared to the ones you wrote? But now, on your paper, I need you to write 5 equivalent ratios of yellow paint to red paint. It's almost the same, but you gotta listen carefully. Yellow to red this time. Go ahead and write 5 equivalent fractions of yellow to red. Now look very close at this number line. What's missing? We're going to be talking about those missing parts right now and filling them in. And you might need to rewrite your number line so it doesn't get swished. My first question is, how much red paint would there be if I had 1 cup of yellow paint? So yellow paint is 1 cup. What would red paint be? So a 1 on the yellow paint number line would be right about here. It's halfway between 0 and 2. The number 1 is exactly halfway between 0 and 2. So I have to ask myself, what's exactly halfway between 0 and 3 on the other number line? If you know the answer, go ahead and write that down now. Let's look at my second question. How much red paint would I need if I have 5 cups of yellow paint? So if the yellow paint is 5, where does that line up with the red paint? Well, 5 would be exactly between 4 and 6. So what's exactly halfway between 6 and 9? That's where it gets hard. Do you know exactly what's between 6 and 9? I know there's a 7 and an 8, but I need to be exactly between 7 and 8. Write your answer if you know it. Did you get that? Did you get through this? Okay, we're going to pick up the pace a little bit because it's going to get a little weird here. That was just the beginning. This is the part where I'm talking about it's going to get real bumpy. Strap yourself in and get ready to pay attention. Stay with me. What if I said the yellow paint has only half a cup? If I want to keep the ratio the same, I need to find an equivalent ratio for red paint. So where would a half a cup of yellow paint be on my number line? Let me just zoom in real big first. This is halfway between 0 and 2. So that's 1. But I need 1/2, not 1. This green line is exactly halfway between 1 and 0. So the small green line is 1/2. So basically I took the distance I needed and I cut it in half and I cut it in half again. Now I have to do the exact same thing to the red paint. I have to cut the interval in half and then in half again. Okay, so here we go. Second number line. Halfway between 0 and the 3 is this green line. What's halfway between 0 and 3? Okay, that's 1.5. Just like the first number line, I have to cut the interval in half. So what's halfway between 0 and 1.5 now? What is 1.5 divided by 2? 3/4. All right, back to this one here. That's pretty difficult, right? So if I asked yellow paint was a half, what would the red paint be? And you wrote down your answer there, right? You wrote down 3/4. On this last one here, yellow paint's 3. What would the red paint be? You're going to have to do that one on your own. Okay, look, I'm not saying that you have to love number lines. I'm not saying you have to learn number lines. I'm saying you have to learn ratios. Now, I have been teaching 6th grade for quite a long time now. There are some students who solve ratios with equivalent fractions. That is so easy to them. And there are some 6th graders who automatically somehow know how to multiply and divide the same things. And they always end up with the right answer, and they can't explain it to the rest of us. Well, congratulations to them. But this double number line strategy, when you get to know it, is actually pretty cool. It's a very easy visual way to show how some fractions and some ratios are equivalent. We're going to be doing lots of work with double number lines coming up, because when I ask you, what is 3/4 of 1/2? Or if I ask you, what is 2/3 divided by 7/8? If you've been doing these double number lines, those next things I'll be teaching about dividing fractions is going to seem pretty easy. I want you to try these double number lines even though it's difficult at first. You know, as you get your bearing learning about dividing fractions and ratios, you can choose the method that's best for your brain. I'm going to tell you, every time I teach double number lines, all the kids are like, oh, I get it now. And see, and that's what I'm going for. I want all you guys to say, oh, I get it now. I think that you are the kind of person who can do hard things. In fact, I know when the road gets bumpy, you're going to hold on tight and stick with me, aren't you? All right, I will see you in the next video when we conquer these double number lines some more.